Welcome to the Motherload, a parenting talk show with host Dr. Amy Stober, licensed psychologist, and Ann Brown, parenting educator. Each week, Amy and Ann invite parents just like you into the studio and discuss the trials of parenting. It's not your mother's parenting advice. And now, here's the Motherload.
Welcome to the Motherload. I'm Amy Stober.
I'm Ann Brown.
And today we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of having guests as we've had in the past, we're going to do some questions that have come in from viewers all over the U.S., really.
Yeah.
And we've brought in their questions, and we're going to answer them, just the two of us, kind of a rapid fire round.
Yes.
So, okay.
But there's no points assigned.
Right.
There's no score. Well, maybe there is.
I'll be right. Okay, so the first one is from Gabrielle in Iowa, and she says, how do you decide how to discipline? And what happens when you and your spouse disagree? But
that's great.
Right, two different things
different
though, really,
questions.
right? Okay, so first, how do you decide how to discipline? You had some interesting thoughts on this, right, about what discipline actually is.
Well, I think that everybody carries a different definition of what discipline is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that many people believe, even if they haven't articulated this yet, believe that there has to be a little bit of fear
Right.
to make discipline stick.
Right.
And so if you are in the camp of people like I am that do not believe there has to be fear, it can look to other people like I'm not really disciplining because I didn't make them cry, or they didn't
They didn't feel bad enough.
They didn't feel bad enough.
Right.
And I think that even as parents, it's important. It's a great question because sometimes the most effective discipline, whatever that definition is going to be, doesn't give parents that satisfaction of like,
Yes.
good, I broke their spirit.
Well, and discipline, it's like people think discipline must mean punishment.
Right.
Right?
So how would you define it?
Discipline is a way that we modify behavior, right? There's a behavior we don't care for, we're trying to change that behavior. So discipline can be the addition of something, the removal of something. And when I talk to parents, I kind of talk to them about this quadrant. Kids are motivated by one of four things: the addition or removal of things or people. And every kid's different, right? If I said to you, hey, one of your boys, what would he be more motivated by? The loss of his Nintendo or the gain of time with you? Right? Every kid is motivated differently. So I really think it's about ways to motivate different types of behavior. So the question is, how do we decide what kind of discipline to use? And that's a tricky one if you and your spouse don't agree on that.
Right. I think the first thing, it's really something that I think people don't talk enough about before they decide to have kids, because it's not something you can have a really good discussion about at 4 a.m. I think some of the best fights that my husband and I had... Or when your kid is acting
like a jerk.
That's right. I would say the best fights that my husband and I had were at 2 a.m. when one of the kids would climb into bed with us, and my husband would say, can't you get the kids not to sleep with us? And all of a sudden, that whole fight was not about the kids sleeping in bed, but it was the exact terms of our divorce. Like, here's why I hate you, and here's why
this is what you're going to owe me.
And which one of us is the parenting instructor?
Right.
Because it's not a sexy thing to sit down and talk about, but you really have to know. I know that when I tell my clients a lot of times is I think that the transgression needs to have a connection with what the consequence
Absolutely.
is. And I think if parents can remember to do this. So if what your kid did was spit at you and call you a rotten name, and what you do is take away their favorite TV show, there is a disconnect. And so I think that's the first part for me of what discipline is really identifying what is that behavior that is not working and what makes sense to connect that behavior.
Right. And if you don't know what a natural consequence is, which a lot of parents don't,
That's right.
First of all, call one of us. We're really evil, and we can come up with really good natural consequences.
Well, I don't answer my phone, so you can write to me on Facebook.
Right.
Call Amy, she answers her phone.
The other thing is, right, coming up with a natural consequence, even if you can't come up with it right away, you can just pause and say,
Absolutely.
you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do for this punishment because I didn't like your behavior, but I'm going to think about it a little bit. And you can use that pause.
And I think that most parents don't realize that you're
They
not
don't have to
losing
come
your
up with
power.
something on the fly. Yep.
And usually if you do come up with something on the fly, it's going to be something that you're going to have to backtrack anyway.
It's not as good.
We're never going to Disneyland. You're never getting your birthday again.
Right.
And I think that if parents can just practice saying in the mirror, I don't have an answer for what I want to do. I need to think about this. you can buy yourself time to really figure out what it is you want to do, and you're not making these ridiculous...
And there's this beautiful shift that happens, right? We were just talking about fear.
Yeah.
When you say to your kid, you know what? I need to think about this for a minute. They're scared, but they're not scared of you.
Right.
What they're thinking is, oh, crud, I really must have messed that up for mom to have to think about that for a little bit. And that's the kind of angst we want our children to have to modify the behavior, not because they're scared of you. Right?
Exactly, exactly.
You know what, though?
What?
Here's the thing. Somebody else asked this question later, right? Because Jenny from Iowa says, I feel like Gabrielle.
From Iowa.
There's parenting concerns in Iowa. She says, I feel like parenting has gotten looser over the years. And we're kind of saying, you know, this punishment doesn't have to be horrible and shame-filled. Kids get far too many choices today. Aren't we raising brats? You know?
Well, here's Jenny in Iowa. I think that you brought up some really good questions. However, I don't think that necessarily it equals, therefore we're raising brats because of being looser in parenting. I think if there is some bratitude coming out in our kids, it's because of a lot of things. I think it's this obscene wealth of riches that we have with enrichment for kids and the feeling that our kids have to have the best. Those are part of it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's because of how we're disciplining our kids.
Well, and I also think it's because we swung to the other side of the continuum, right? We had a certain generation of parents that were raising by the hand and kind of this strict authoritarian parenting.
Right.
And we were like, that's raising, you know, a generation of kids who are kind of stressed out. And so we swung the opposite way, or maybe some parents swung the opposite way, the parents that Jenny's talking to. And they seem so permissive, but there's something in the middle, right?
There is. I think that parents sometimes have a hard time knowing what is it that I need to happen in the change. You know, I talk a lot on this show and also in my classes about the word out-reasoning, that trying to out-reason with your child is not only getting them to clean the toys up in their room, but to say,
wanting them to have an epiphany about it.
So what you're saying is if I clean them up, then no one will step on them. And that's when we get mad at them because they're not feeling, they're not internalizing what we want them to. So I think that part of this with parenting getting looser is we have, I believe, many of us, lost the ability to say, this is my expectation. This needs to happen right now. You can be upset with me. That's not the same as discipline. That's really doing it at the loading end. It's saying, what are the expectations what are my expectations for your behavior? And then you don't have to go with, or you can't get a donut. It really is, this is what I expect. And
well, we don't have to explain a lot, right? I mean, I think you said this a long time ago, right? I was listening to you talk to, we say about 80% too much to kids, and I really
Maybe someone
do.
said that to me.
Okay. But I think that's true, right?
Oh, we are blah, 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 blah.
And maybe that's what feels looser to some parents because we're over-explaining everything.
Great point.
And I don't think we have to over-explain. I think we can give a consequence. I don't think it has to be this harsh punishment, right? That our child is quaking in their boots. But I do think we can give a consequence, or a natural consequence is best, or removal of a privilege, and then be done.
You know, that actually segues into a question we have from Sylvia from California.
Great.
Who says, why do I have to tell my kids to do something 1,000,000 times before they finally listen or until I'm finally yelling? And, you know, that's the same idea. The answer to this question is in asking the question, why are you telling them so many times? Something that I like to tell parents is only go 3 rounds with your kids. When you want them to do something, the first round is you say, it's time to brush your teeth. That's round 1. And then only wait a little bit of time, and you go to round 2 within the first minute, which is, you can brush your teeth by yourself right now, or I'm going to brush them for you, but teeth need to get brushed. So that way it's just this neutral statement. Teeth need to get brushed. Here's where the first part where a lot of us fall down on the job. The kid says, okay, I'll do it myself, and then we leave. We go on Facebook.
Right, armchair parenting. That's what I call that.
Finish answering some texts.
And then the kid doesn't brush their teeth.
And then we come back, and we are just like, how dare you?
Livid.
So the first trick is going from round 2 to round 3, which is the follow-through. I like to tell women, wait 5 Kegels, because that way you will tone your pelvic floor. And because now if I'm pissed off at you, and I'm not going to give you time. I'm doing Kegels right now. I'm doing that whole one. And see how relaxed I look?
We're going to have a whole different set of questions next time.
I'm not tense. If I laugh hard, there'll be no accidents because I have been doing my Kegels. So then you go right to round 3 because you don't let your kid leave when they're going, okay, so here's what most kids do. Okay, I'll do it.
Just to get you to shut
and then
up.
They're just kind of like this. So you say round 3. It looks like today the choice you made is I'm going to brush them for you. And then you just brush their teeth. And when they are reading you the riot act, when it's over, you say, maybe the choice you'll make tomorrow is you brush them yourself.
Or my favorite thing with the teeth brushing thing, because this must come up a lot if we're both answering questions about teeth brushing with parents, is say to the kid on round 2, right? You know what? We have a choice. We're going to brush our teeth or we're going to get rid of the Halloween candy.
Oh.
Right? And most of the time I have kids running to the bathroom then, right? Because that's the natural consequence. Again, right? Why do we brush our teeth? We brush our teeth to get sugar off so that we can eat yummy foods when we want to. That's a pretty quick way to get them to modify the behavior.
But it's really going from that, once you've said that it needs to happen, to the follow through, which is where all the arguing happens.
Which is on you as a parent.
That's right. All of the arguing. It's a little bit easier with a 1-year-old who just screams no, but then you start talking to a 4-year-old who says, well, actually, there was one day when we didn't. I mean, they can find the loophole in everything, and you get lured into it. It has to just be,
which is
the choice you
then
made.
why we yell. Right?
Exactly.
So we're yelling because we're ticked at the kid.
Sylvia from California?
We're ticked at the kid. We are upset because we've had to come back into the room. We've had to repeat ourselves 3 times. And really, it kind of goes back to one thing I talk about a lot, which is trainability, right? We train our kids all the time, whether or not they have to listen to us the first 2 times. If the first time we say it and then we're moving our body towards them and helping them, they will know that we don't have to raise our voice and get louder and louder.
I think on the top 5 issues with raising kids, that makes it to the top 5, which is you can stop arguing by don't say it until you know what the follow through is. Don't say it until you're ready to follow through. Have the toothbrush in your hand. And once you've said it, then you go right to the follow through, because every minute in between saying it and follow through is arguing.
Right.
And you give your power away and you're exhausted by the end of it.
Well, and let me bring this full circle, right? We were talking about punishment or discipline, right?
Yeah.
I really think screaming is the new spanking. I think parents finally got the message that we shouldn't spank, right? There's all this research that says it doesn't connect for kids, and later on it makes them anxious and depressed and all this kind of stuff. It makes your kids anxious and depressed if you spank them. And screaming is the new spanking. Except, so what it tells me is we still have the same problem. We've just replaced spanking with screaming. And really, what we need to do is this follow through.
And the follow through has to be with compassionate detachment. Because
say more about that though. Most parents don't know what that means.
You know, I'm a broken record about compassionate detachment. It means that most parents err on one side or the other. Like a lot of parents have all this compassion, and those are the parents that I see sometimes in the parking lot at Target saying, I know that mommy didn't buy you that lunch you wanted, but you need to take that rusty nail out of the baby's eyeball.
I love Target for this reason.
The baby's eyeball, that makes the baby sad when you scratch his eyeball with a rusty nail. And that parent needs to understand the detachment part, which is simply stating what needs to happen. Parents who are erring on too much detachment, not enough compassion, are the ones who I think sometimes kind of
aren't even paying attention to the
and they want to go just for what we said, the punishment. They want shock value.
Too bad.
They want it's like they spank or they and they're saying, you know what, I don't care what you say. That's what detachment is.
Or how you feel.
I don't care what you say and how you feel. I'm going to get my power back by doing this thing. And so to find the balance of compassionate detachment is being able to say and look at your child and say, I know you are really pissed off at me because I brushed your teeth, or I picked up your toys because you wouldn't pick them up and I gave them to Goodwill. Because if you're not going to respect your things, this is the look of compassionate detachment.
Right. And the parental shrug.
It can't be like, you can't get that in there.
And it also can't look like, oh, I'm so sorry for your feelings, right? The phrase I use, I love compassionate detachment. I use the phrase, you got to be a loving hard ass, right? You can be loving and you can still be firm. And there's this beautiful balance in the middle where you're showing your kid, I'm here for you, I support you, I can help organize your feelings, and yet this is the rule. This is how we're going to do things.
One of the questions that you got, kind of, read that one.
Cindy from Minnesota said, I hate seeing my child cry or be sad. I'm afraid they think that I don't love them.
God, I love that question. I am actually surprised at how many parents I have met over the 30 years of doing this job who feel that way.
Yes.
Because I must have ice water running through my veins because it's not like I ever want to see my kids upset. I mean, I could still cry now thinking of them being upset, but when they messed up and I held the line and said, I'm not doing that. If if you treat me this way, then I'm not taking you to the park.
Even when they say you're so mean, you're the meanest mom ever, or they're crying and they want their way, right? If they don't have feelings about something that you've said or done, or a hard line, that's a different problem.
Oh, I agree. My son once, after telling me that he wasn't ever going to talk to me again, went into his room, slammed the door, and then he opened it and he said, Mom, how do you spell evil? Ooh. And I was like, all right, I'm getting a note.
Nice.
You know that, and what it made me feel is good. He's got some emotional literacy, and I don't need to buy into it. And he's not scared to tell you. That's right. I don't need to buy into it. So I hate seeing my child cry. I mean, this is usually where I make up a bunch of stuff and pretend I'm a psychologist like you are, because this is why I ask these like pseudo psychology questions. This is what I look like if someone says it. What was the trigger in your life? When you grew up, what was anger like for you? Was it safe for you to be sad? Was it safe for you? And then, of course, I worry what they're going to say because I don't know what to do with the information.
Well, truly, though, you're hitting on it, right?
I think it's a trigger. I think it is all a trigger.
Why do you have an intolerance for your child's emotional state that's anything other than okay, right? And we have to be able to teach our kids that we have a wide range of feelings, from really angry to very sullen or sad, and that all of those feelings are okay. And that there's an acceptable way to, show emotions. Certainly you shouldn't, be, screaming at someone when you're angry or being hurtful. But that all of those feelings are okay. And when we fix something right away, instead of allowing our child to experience their full emotion, we're denying them the right to be their own person.
One of the ways I ask the parents, I say, do you want to raise a child who believes that their world falls apart when they don't get what they want? Because that's the message you give your child. If they're screaming because they didn't get what they want, and you keep addressing it, and you keep like, should we breathe? How can I help you? What you're teaching them is it's not a safe thing to not get what you want. And so,
and you're also teaching them that they have no internal coping mechanism.
Absolutely.
Right? That you're going to solve it for them. We'll make this better. We'll be okay. Right? That they can't do it on their own. And really, kids need to learn that they can do this on their own.
Well, and I think in order for kids to learn, parents need to believe. Parents need to have faith that they can, because I know for me, there was a lot of stuff that I needed to let my kids know I believed in them, but I didn't really believe in them. And so I think that part of raising kids is giving yourself the strength and the courage to say, I have to have faith that my child is going to be able to cope with the vicissitudes of life, even though right now I don't think she can.
And then do this. And really hope.
And then go to the altar, offer up an offering.
Okay, good. All right, so Cindy, be okay with your kids being sad. They're going to be fine.
And maybe get some therapy.
Right.
Wouldn't you say that to somebody?
Absolutely.
I love saying that to people.
Okay, what do you have next?
Tiffany. If you've been watching our show, Tiffany was a guest on the show on the last episode, I believe. And then she moved to Wyoming, not because of anything that happened on the show. But she wrote in with a question. So Tiffany has 3 boys. I don't remember the ages, but they are between 2 and 7.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
You're making that up, but it's okay.
Her question is about in her boys' play, there is a lot of not only real sword play and real hitting, but a lot of talking about cutting people in half and talking about, I'm going to punch this, I'm going to kill this, and then kind of egging each other on. And she said that the problem so far hasn't really been that they're doing that as much as the talk gets so graphic and they get so worked up, and it's just, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to throw it on your head, and then I'm going to bash you in. And Tiffany's question is, do you intervene, or do you just let the talk happen?
Well, talk is so powerful, isn't it? Words are so powerful. And I really think that kids have to experiment with their words, right? And I also think that all kids, especially boys, go through this phase of good guy, bad guy. And when they're talking about, cutting people in half and tearing their head off and, ripping things apart, that what they're also really fundamentally trying to figure out is, are the good guys going to win?
That's right.
What's good and evil? Who's going to, be the reckoning force at the end of things here?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's part of it, just language and figuring things out. What do you think?
I agree. I think that, to go a slightly tangential off of Tiffany's question, Tiffany, I will come back to your question. A lot of this play sometimes morphs into death play and life and death play.
Well, and we're horrible.
And we're
horrible.
We freak when that happens. And one of the things that I think is really important is if you watch kids play any kind of killing games, not any kinds, but the kind of norm, I'm going to kill you.
Right, you're not talking about video games. You're talking about a play theme.
Right, dramatic play.
Yeah,
dramatic
absolutely.
play. That I believe that what you really see in that are the messages of reincarnation. I think it's the real power, because I think for children it's the power to, I killed you, and then the person who is killed rises from the dead and says, I'm back. Right. And most times you watch kids play, the person who's dead doesn't stay dead.
And they have to figure that out, right?
I think it's a great
They've really
power.
got to figure it out. And play, we have to remember, is kids' way of processing. Right? So whether they're processing good and evil, whether they're processing death, reincarnation, power.
That's right.
Play is the way that they do that. And kids, in today's age, I think when we're so plugged into everything, they don't get enough playtime, which is a whole other thing, right? But allow your kids to play. And keep asking other moms and other people, right? I mean, if you're worried about it, really, most boys are engaging in this kind of play.
And I
it's
think that
developmentally
what happens
appropriate.
Is when our kids start talking about, I'm going to bash his head in.
Kill you.
Whatever.
Right, I'm going to cut you in half.
What's helpful is to not get stuck on the specifics of what the child is saying, but try to ask, if they want you to be part of it, try to ask some provocative questions of like, I'm going to cut you in half. And then I could say, well, what would happen then? Or then I wouldn't be able to get up again, because then you really find what the themes are. Because maybe the theme is, I want some power over you. I am really into this story, and I don't have to shut down the whole play, but I don't have to repeat the words that they're saying. I know that in preschools a lot, there's a lot of talk with faculties about what do we do about gunplay, or not real, but finger gunplay.
Right,
and
or making things into guns.
Oh yeah, right. Anything can be a gun. Yeah. And we know that if we simply shut it down, it goes underground. Right. And it doesn't really address
and then there's
what
no
are the
voice
kids trying to get out of it.
Yeah, there's no voice to it. And once you put a voice to it and you narrate that, I know in the preschool that sponsors us, right, Merrillhurst, they do a lot of narrating the children's play and writing their stories. They think their words are so important, they write their story down. Absolutely. And truly they are. And it helps kids process that type of play on a much deeper level.
It's hard as a parent when your child comes up to you and you say, oh, hi, honey, how are you? What do you want for breakfast? And they say, I'm going to punch your head off. I'm going to pull out your eyeballs, and I'm going to make them into soup, and I'm going to eat it. And you're like, oh, my God.
Right. My kid's going to be a serial killer.
It's really hard to channel that teacher in you and the therapist in you to be able to say, wow. That would really make a difference in how our morning went. Yeah, well, and not to go to this, that would hurt mommy's feelings.
Can I add something? Exactly. Can I add something to that, which is every once in a while, moms, don't be so darn worried about this. Like when your little boy says, I'm going to cut you in half and rip out your eyeballs, say, and then I'm going to slice you and eat all your curls and rip off your feet and see if you can join them. Right. They will look at you like this for a moment, they'll be surprised, and then they'll be like, yes, and they're going to engage in that play with you.
I want to add even one more layer to that, which is I think that many parents have a very difficult time knowing when it's appropriate to say that makes me sad. Because I have, going back to my field research, the Target parking lot, I have heard so many parents when the kid says, I hate you, or I'm going to throw this toy away, and they go, oh, that makes me sad.
So sad.
Why does that make you sad? Either something's making you mad, or I don't give a flying you know what.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be. We overuse the word. I think what parents are thinking is they're trying to build compassion in their children.
It's not the time.
But that's not how you do it, by saying, oh, that makes me sad if you're mad at me.
Right.
Like, come on, we all get to be mad at each other.
When they say, I hate you, you're the worst mom ever, what they're really saying is, I don't like the decision that you made.
Absolutely.
I don't like how you handled that. I wish I could have gotten the toy that I wanted in aisle 4. And you're saying, right?
Compassionate detachment.
That's right.
Tiffany, I want to tell you one more thing about your question. You didn't ask it, but I'm wondering if you're also asking, what if 2 out of the 3 kids want to play it, or 1 out of the 3 kids want to talk about it, and it's upsetting the other kid. One of the things I like to do is ask the child who doesn't want to play, who looks like they're not really into it, do you want to play that game with your brother right now? Do you want to play that cutting in half game? First of all, calling it a game, I think reduces it, takes all the power out of it.
Well, it makes your child not a sociopath.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Oh, that too.
Right.
And that way it also empowers the child who feels victimized because they keep saying, I'm going to cut you in half, by saying, do you want to play that game? And if that kid says no, you go, all right, so why don't you and I play the ABC game?
Right.
And you've actually not had to do any kind of
intervention.
Right, okay,
right.
So
Good.
hope we answered that one, Tiffany.
Perfect. We have a few minutes left here.
Adam from Brooklyn wants to know about how do I get my kids to sleep through the night?
I've got a sleep question too.
We don't know.
Wait, you won't ever like our answers about sleep. We could talk about sleep a whole other time. We'll spend a whole half hour talking about sleep. We're going to have to. Okay. Anne doesn't want to. I will.
I have no answers.
Okay. How do you this came up in our last show. This must be a theme. Let's do this one before we run out of time. Carol from Michigan says, how do you handle sibling squabbling? It's driving me nuts.
Can we just rip that one up too? Go to an easier one.
That's easier. Interfaith couples.
Yeah, that's not easier.
No, that's not easier. Sibling
let's
squabbling.
See if we have some better questions.
Sibling squabbling. It's bothering you more than it's bothering them.
Yes.
My 2s are terrible. When will they grow out of it? I don't know. How old are your boys?
33 and 29, but they're not terrible anymore. But they also live in California.
33 and 29. So there's
it takes
hope.
33
there's hope
years
for all of you.
or 29 years.
Right, because at 8 and 10, mine are still terrible at times.
Right, and so we don't know.
That's
we don't know what it
terrible
is.
too.
I'm 61.
Right.
I'm sure that someone thinks I'm in my terrible 61s. Last question. Is it okay to get tired of your child and not want to spend time with him or her? I wish we were starting the half hour because I would spend the whole half hour saying one word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kids are boring. I mean, that when they hand you that baby, when it comes out of you,
it's already boring.
What they you've already had the highest moments that you're ever going to have. You're like, it is downhill.
It was so exciting up until that point.
I mean, everyone's honest about you're going to love your child. You don't know you have this kind of love.
Right.
And then some people are honest and saying, man, you're going to feel angry. But what no one says is you are going to want to pour hot tar up your nose rather than play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
for the 100th time.
I can't tell you when my kids would say, play with me, I was like, I will give you drugs. I'll give you money. I'll give you, please. And someone in my class once said that when her kids are saying please with playing action figures, she came up with being the mountain. So she lays down. What's the, when your knees are doing that, what's the name?
Down dog. Downward dog.
Well, she's on her back.
Oh, she's on
with
her back.
With her knees up. So your feet are on the floor, your knees. And she goes, okay, I'm the mountain, just climb the mountain. And all she has to do is lie
and
there.
And they love it.
And the kid's like, we're going up the mountain. She's okay, come on down the mountain again.
So you're going to get tired of your kids.
Of course.
It's okay to get tired of your kids.
And they get tired of us.
Right.
So I think that let's all just be honest. You're like the only person I don't get tired of in the world. I mean, we're all just rats living in a shoebox.
Right.
And I think that we don't have time, but what I'd love to talk about on the next time is the segue to getting tired of your kids, which is it your job to play with your kids?
Is it your job to becoming, let's talk about that next time.
All day long with your kids. If you're not working outside the home and you have this guilt that, well, I should be home playing with my kids, is that really the right thing to do? You probably have figured out in how we've asked the question what our answer is that we don't think so. Is this the end?
This is the end. So we want to thank Pioneer Pediatrics. Thanks so much, Pioneer Pediatrics and the Merrillhurst School for sponsoring us.
Yes. And
more questions.
You can find us on Facebook at the Motherload, Not Your Mother's Parenting Advice.
Put questions up there. We'll continue to answer them. We'd love to have another segment like this where we're just answering all of your questions that are coming in. So thanks so much. And remember, don't parent like my co-host.
The Motherload has been brought to you today by the following sponsors: